Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going this morning?
Good morning.
What is up?
The Sunday after, we also got a game tonight. Shout out to the chat. We're going to be taking you guys' questions as well. I'm Jake Crane. We're our first Sunday recap. Something we did last year. Had a lot of fun doing it, kind of breaking down all the biggest things in college football, and there was a lot to dissect after yesterday. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crane, joining us as well. And guys, let's kick it off. Where do y'all want to start?
You tell me, man. Georgia, Bama, everyone else?
Yeah, not close.
Yeah, it's, again, fun year. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Good job on the breakdown. To me, it does look like Alabama, Georgia, and everybody else. But it just kind of an overview before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of what we saw yesterday in certain games. The physicality of Alabama, and Blake Anderson said it's the best college football team he's seen in 30 years. This is the most physical team that I've seen Nick Saban have. I know Utah State's not the 49ers. Okay, I get it. And I'm not talking about Charlotte. But when I look at Alabama, we always know they're athletic. We know they're fast. You can tell they're pissed off after last year. That was such a buttoned-up performance. If you shut anybody out, I don't care if the Little Giants would have came up there and they shut them out. It's hard to do, especially in the game today with the way it's officiated. But I'm telling you right now, I picked Bama to go 15-0 and after them and win the national championship. And after last night, that looks 100% to me like it was the right choice. Now anything can happen. Georgia did look, doggish, and pun intended. Stetson Bennett, and we'll get into all that. But just your overall thoughts on Alabama, Cone.
I mean, in an era where Nick Saban has created the greatest dynasty we've ever seen, I still found a way to be shocked by how good this football team was. Now, granted, I'm watching it with, a household of Alabama fans, so I feel like I've been adopted in, which is good. Marry into a winner if that's what you have to do. But, even speaking with some of them, it really is amazing just to see the depth that Alabama is able to bring in on all facets of the game. We know they have the best offensive player in the country. We know they have the best defensive player in the country, but that really doesn't even start to tell the tale of this Alabama team. Now we're going to find out a little bit more. The SEC West is a grueling, gauntlet of a schedule, but to me, they just have what it takes and they have the right coach to be able to weather any storm and set up that SEC showdown with what I see as the other juggernaut from the West in the East in Georgia.
Yeah, Blaine, and watching Bryce last night, he obviously didn't forget. Offensively, they were able to actually keep it pretty vanilla. I don't think Bama really reached schematically, didn't show a ton. We know they have Texas next week. It must be nice to play a team like Oregon and be like, we're just going to keep it vanilla. But just really quick, what did you see from Bama yesterday?
Nothing that I didn't expect to see. I mean, they're buttoned up from top to bottom. Every layer on their defense, from the D-line to the backers to the secondary, are just phenomenal, and they know their identity. You can see how well coached they are. But another thing, guys, they're huge.
Huge.
Oh, they're huge.
Huge.
In the box, they're huge. It's going to be so hard to move. Poor Utah State. I felt like Utah State did as good as they could do. But Bama is just on a different level, and you go the same thing with Georgia. I mean, you watched the Georgia-Oregon game, and it was like bring your kids to the game day. Georgia literally was Oregon were their kids. They brought them to the game, and you saw early they got a few first downs, and after that it was completely shut down on every level. And Georgia's offense looks like it's on another level too. That tight end room, Washington's the biggest human being I've ever seen with a football in his hands, and he was jumping over kids. They were running through kids, and I don't think it was a bad knock on Oregon to say they weren't a good football team. I just think Georgia's on that other top tier with Bama.
Yeah, California Dog, thanks for that donation, my friend. We don't have the soundboard, but we'll hit one for you tomorrow morning in the live show because we're laboring on Labor Day. Best believe that. # no days off. Rodney Gilbert, Anthony Rudd, what's up, man? Yeah, we're going to get to AR-15. Florida, if you called the Florida win the whole summer.
I saw that. I saw that tweet, too. Wow, you went full Matrix.
Don't worry. It's going to be discussed.
Yeah, you went full Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, well, look, sometimes you have to trust the signs, and I'll get into that. But I want to start. Let's do a quick overview of the games, and then we'll get to a lot of these questions and some of the periphery, if that's good with you guys. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Now, look, I thought Ohio State was going to win by more than this, and I'll say it's the first game. Okay, it's the first game. A lot of teams will improve. Ohio State's huge, too. I mean, you look at that offensive line. I mean, it looks like the Great Wall of China. I mean, I don't know how you get past it, but Notre Dame, not as talented of a roster. Marcus Freeman had them coached up. They went in there and they played a clean game. They made Ohio State have to beat them. And for the first half, And halfway through the third quarter, Ohio State wasn't beating them. Ohio State played about their C game, I thought, offensively. But one thing, Blaine and David, you being a former quarterback at Michigan, like I don't understand with C.J. Stroud. I get it. You don't want to be a guy that takes off and runs the whole time. Bryce Young doesn't do it that way. It doesn't look great for the NFL scouts. But it seems to me that C.J. Stroud, and you saw some of this last year, doesn't use his legs when the opportunity is there. There was 3 or 4 times in the first half, twice on third down, where he steps up in the pocket. Notre Dame's in man. Their backs are turned. It's 3rd and 7 one time, I think 3rd and 9. He could have ran for probably 15 yards before he got hit, but he tries to force a throw into 2 defenders. Just because you run sometimes. Hell, Colton Ehlers from East Carolina State, who looks like a guy you play basketball against at the YMCA, takes off when it's there sometimes. If he doesn't do that, I don't see a way in hell that this offense is going to be able to produce at the level that some of us, including myself, thought they were going to produce.
Meanwhile, his counterpart at Alabama, Bryce Young, did do that all game, and he did it as smoothly as possible. I mean, leaving the pocket every chance he got, picking up big gains. Look, we can say for the Buckeyes that this is just the first game and they need to work out some jitters. This was a poor performance. And really back-to-back seasons now where they haven't started off hot. Now, because the problems were on the offensive side of the ball, maybe some of those timing issues can be worked out. But I thought one of the safest bets this weekend, Jake, you and I were talking about, was to take the Ohio TTP. Right. I think what was it up to? Was it 48.5, something like 38.5?
It was pretty far up there.
Yeah. And so, really kudos to Marcus Freeman for getting this Notre Dame team ready to go in there. The Horseshoe is one of the toughest places to win in the country. And I thought Notre Dame went in there and really outplayed the Buckeyes for much of the game. But look, at the end of the day, Ohio's 1-0, and Notre Dame has that loss, and everything Ohio wants is still in front of them.
Yeah, it is. And again, you see a lot of teams make one of the biggest jumps and improvements all year from game 1 to game 2. And look, I say C.J. Stroud didn't have a great game. He went 24 of 34 for 223 and 2 touchdowns. Made that big throw there to put them up by 4 when they were down 10-7 over the middle. Just beat them a little bit on a seam route or a skinny, it looked like. And Ohio State has the pieces. But that wide receiver room, I mean, if Jigba gets hurt, I get it. They had other guys step up, though. We know they're talented. But after watching, and again, I know Bama played Utah State. And you can still get something from that. All right. Utah State won the Mountain West last year. Let's not pretend like this is Alabama State. And then watching Georgia absolutely pull Oregon's pants down in front of the whole high school from the Peter Pan play. That was just absolutely wild to see. Let's go ahead and move there. We are going to get to these questions and comments in the chat. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube as well. We're going to be hitting the Sunday recap every Sunday. And once NFL starts, it's going to be a recap/preview. We're going to be dropping our fantasy picks as well. But Oregon, Georgia, I mean, look, here's what I will say. Last year, we talked about this on the show. We were like, will Georgia open up the offense? Will Todd Monken say, you know what? We got to make the adjustment that Nick Saban made with Lane Kiffin and not just be good defense, good special teams, run the ball, play action. Then you had the injuries in that elite defense. They came out in 12 personnel, which is 1 back and 2 tights a lot. 1 back, 3 tight. We saw some of that. We saw the split out. I think Arik Gilbert's going to be fine. But Georgia, to me, opened up the offense for the first time formationally yesterday against Oregon. You saw a little bit of that race car. And Stetson Bennett, you know what he looks like to me, guys? He looks to me like a guy who's already the hero. He looks to me like he's got nothing left to prove. What happens? You don't win it this year? Well, you're still one of the most famous and could be considered the upper echelon elite quarterbacks at Georgia because you won the Natty. Were you the main reason they won the national championship last year? No. Were you the reason they lost the national championship? No, you won it. But Stetson, to me, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want this to come off wild, he looked a little bit Baker Mayfield-ish to me on that field with the way he was operating, extending plays, keeping them alive. Now, I'm not saying he has Baker's talent, and he's a lot smaller, and he's not going to play in the NFL. Most likely he may get a shot, but he'll hold a clipboard. But again, when you have nothing to lose because you've already won it all, Stetson Bennett, I mean, when you look at the numbers, he was as efficient as it gets. I mean, you throw for a high clip for 368 yards, you have a couple tuds in the air and 1 rushing. I mean, guys, at plus 6,000 coming into yesterday, Stetson Bennett, if he plays like that with the absolute aliens that are running around for Georgia, McIntosh, Milton, Adonai Mitchell, Darnell Washington,
McConkey.
Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, who's Hunter Renfro's Spider-Man gif pointing at each other. I mean, guys, I'm telling you right now, Georgia with an open offense, this is going to be Uncle Fester in a skirt scary sitting at the pool.
Well, I thought Todd Monken did a great job. Did a great job just keeping things mixed up. And look, I've always been critical of Stetson Bennett, but I tell you what, I don't know if he had 4 or 5 incompletions, but 2 of those were drops, and one was I'm pretty sure he threw the ball away. Stetson was almost perfect with everything he did in that game, from the play action. I mean, even that touchdown pass late. When it was kind of they busted a protection up front, made a couple guys miss, and he threw the backside touchdown to McConkey. But Georgia on offense looked comfortable. They looked like they knew their pace, and they knew exactly what they wanted to get done. And you go look at Oregon. I was surprised by certain things at Oregon. Georgia was a lot more talented at Oregon, which I was not surprised by. But the tackling for Oregon was atrocious.
It was awful.
In the open field, it was absolutely terrible. You saw bust all over in the secondary, just throwing to wide open people. And, you know, I expected certain things from a Dan Lanning defense, but bad tackling and a lot of bust, I didn't expect. But Georgia right now, and look, they lost, 15 players to the draft. So obviously, if you're thinking there's going to be somewhat of a downfall on that defense, but that defense still looks almost as good as last year. And not as much talent, but they felt comfortable. They knew where they were. And my biggest thing when I was looking at was the linebacker room. The linebacker room looks like they didn't lose a step from last year. And that's probably the scariest thing you could say for any other team who wants to go against Georgia. Stetson Bennett, the new Stetson Bennett with the fade. I don't know, Stetson Bennett, or what's his new nickname is.
This is a Full Metal Jacket Stetson.
Yeah, exactly. The kid looks comfortable, and the mailman delivered the mail. And after I knew probably that second pick, Bo Nix threw, that this was going to be a bloodbath. I'm surprised they scored 3 against him, to be honest.
Look, it's Full Metal Jacket Stetson, man. And Stetson Bennett can ball. Man, we can say that he's just an average quarterback on a really good team. I mean, look, would the kid be doing what he's doing if he were the quarterback for Vanderbilt? Maybe not, but all you can do is play within the situation you're in. And if he were just hitting wide open guys, you know, on swing routes, and they were taking him 85 yards every play, then there could be something to that. A couple of the plays I saw him make yesterday when coverage was tight, I'm like, this kid can play football. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to give him credit for that. And also with everyone thinking that, I mean, this is what happens when you're playing with house money. Like Jake said, I mean, this kid has already won a championship. He has all the confidence in the world. He's got the Full Metal Jacket fade going on. And he's saying, okay, y'all bet against us if you want. I know Alabama looks good and everybody thinks we're done because we won the title last year. Y'all bet against us if you want. And here we come.
No, for sure. And you just look at the numbers. What's interesting to me, and people look and say, wait, Georgia's leading rusher only had 50 yards. Well, they spread out the carries, but that Oregon made the decision that we're going to try and stop the run, and Stetson Bennett is going to have to murder us through the air. There were a lot of one-on-one matchups that Georgia had on the outside that you can just you could not take if you're Todd Monken. Now, last year, they'd have probably played that closer to the vest. But Todd Monken said, you know what? You're going to give it to me this year. That's how you end up going 25 of 31 for 368 and 2 touchdowns. Even though the leading rusher only had 50 yards on 8 attempts. So it's not like there was 15 carries for 50 yards. You don't have to be Matt Damon from Goodwill Hunting to figure out that's a pretty good average there. But Georgia had enough faith in their offense and felt like they could open it up enough where they took what the defense would give them. Last year, you know what you were getting. You were getting steak, eggs, and potatoes. And then at the end, some apple pie if you had to throw something on the top. Now, Georgia's coming out there shooting webs all over the place. And they say, all right, if you want to load up the box, we will make you pay over the middle. We'll make you pay in the seam. We'll make you pay outside, and we'll make you pay vertically. And the more I watch Adonai Mitchell, the more that kid is everything that a lot of people thought he was going to be. He made that big touchdown catch last year. He's got a little Pickens in him. All right, and it's Georgia's here to stay. That Georgia win yesterday looked pretty familiar, didn't it? It looks like what Alabama does when they whip everybody's ass in the first game, all these brand name teams. He's little Nick. Georgia's here to stay. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm from Auburn, man. But I also, my eyes and my brain works. Like Georgia is here to stay. What's up, Booster Club? Let's take a couple questions here, guys, before we move on. I had a question about Anthony Richardson in the Heisman. Look, the dude's unbelievably talented. We're going to break down the Florida-Utah game, but somebody asked about Stetson for the Heisman as well. Those odds are going to change a little bit going into next week. I know it was plus 6,000 coming in, but Anthony Richardson last night, guys, that Florida-Utah game. Let's go ahead and jump there. A game that all summer, I felt like Florida in the swamp, and Utah was throwing up halfway through the first quarter. I don't know if you guys saw that when you were watching it. They were showing one of the DBs, I think. And there was a guy, I was in a space on Twitter, and he was like, well, they practice in altitude. This is a common misconception. I was like, well, listen, man, you don't have to be Bill Nye the science guy to know that altitude and humidity are two different things. When you go down into the swamp, and Utah fought, and I got nothing but respect for Utah. You came down into an SEC hellhole, a place that's very tough to play, and you guys represented. Like, the Pac-12 didn't come in soft with Utah. You just ran into that, and that's what we say about the SEC, who, by the way, is undefeated, that it is not just about Bama and Georgia. Like, having to go on the road and play Florida and play Tennessee and play Kentucky, it's not a walk in the park. Like that. That's what we keep saying. A lot of people think it's a one-off. No, it's not. And, like Adam Sandler said, as the water boy, now I love my mama very much. And now you know that.
I can't tell you how much fun I had watching this game, man. And I was tweeting this yesterday. Utah's last two games have been two of the best I've seen, going back to the Rose Bowl against the Buckeyes last year. Unfortunately for Utah, they lost both of those games. But kudos to Florida here. I mean, they ran the ball at will. They showed up big when it mattered, even down the stretch there at the goal line. Utah, to me, you can't throw an interception there when you have a chip shot for a field goal. I love the way both of these teams play football and offense, though. Utah pulling traps, counters, play action off of that. Cam Rising is obviously a baller. I don't know where they go from here, though, because now that you've lost the opening game to not Georgia or not Alabama, I don't think that they can make the playoff even if they were to run the table here. But a fantastic football game, and I think that Billy Napier really showed up in his debut, and Florida's going to be a problem, man.
Yeah, Blaine, I mean, if you're Billy Napier, you come in game one, beat the number 7 team in the country at home. But I'm going to say this. Anthony Richardson, Florida, again, is Florida the best team in the SEC or the SEC East? No. But Anthony Richardson is one of the most special individuals that I have seen with a football in his hand. He has a long way to go in the passing game. There's some things read-wise, but he has the arm. There's a reason he's the number 12 overall prospect in the draft. Those runs he made, I have not seen a guy that is that big move like that since Cam Newton played at Auburn.
The Cam comp. I get it, but he's more Vince Youngish to me.
Well, let me explain, because Vince was big. I think you could make somewhat of a comparison between Vince Young and Cam Newton, even though Cam Newton had a much better NFL career. Guys that are that size, that are that nimble. Anthony Richardson makes quick twitch moves that Nick Marshall made from Auburn. Like, he is a big guy that has unbelievably electric ability with his feet. His arm is huge. He threw a vertical about 70 yards last night.
Oh, yeah.
That really should have been caught. It was actually, the crazy part is a little bit underthrown. But Anthony Richardson does things that people that size aren't really supposed to be able to do. And you have guys that are really talented, right? You have smaller guys that can run. You have even guys like Lamar Jackson that are bigger size guys, thinner, not as thick. But then you have guys like Anthony Richardson, where when we talk about the sky is the limit, like that may not be giving him enough credit. Florida is going, there's a reason I had them 4-4 going in this year. They are going to win games just because Anthony Richardson makes one or two plays that is absolutely wild. And I'll say this, and you want to protect him and you want to keep him healthy. I was screaming at the television when he was not keeping the zone read on that last drive going down the field, and ETN had a great game. But for some reason, Utah was playing him soft off the zone read. He had like 40 yards of cushion with a guy outside leverage. It was him and the safety who kept floating to try and tackle ETN, because ETN would take that zone read, obviously, to the backside, because the quarterback's reading the front side, backs going to the backside. If he would have kept it a few times, I mean, he ended up with 11 carries for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground.
And could have had more.
And you knew what he was doing. Like this wasn't oh no, I'm Alan Turing, got to figure out the Enigma machine. You knew what was going on, but I thought he made some smart plays, Cone. Also, when he had the opportunity to run, when the play got outside the pocket, whether it was the boot, whether he was improvising, he made some pretty good decisions to dump the ball off to the running back, to the tight end, to the crosser. And that's what, I think is the next step for Anthony Richardson. But don't be shocked if Florida beats a couple teams they're not supposed to beat, because that dude is an absolute freak show.
I agree. Blaine, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I was more confused with Utah's really their strategy in this game because, I was bullish on Utah, probably a couple months ago. But the more I saw when the spread came out, the more I looked at this game, I kind of changed my tone for this game. If I was Utah, I'm coming in to do what? I'm stopping Anthony Richardson from running the football, or at least doing
how though? How do you stop that?
Him.
Sell out.
I'm loading the box and I'm keeping him in. I'm loading the box and I'm keeping him inside. I'm not letting him get to the sidelines.
Yep.
I want Anthony Richardson to beat me with his arm.
Yep.
Utah did not do that. You even saw with the zone reads. They didn't even play him realistically on the zone reads. Anthony Richardson probably left 50-plus yards on the field running the ball. I mean, you got to think of that long 40, 50-yard touchdown he had on that pass play. Nobody was spying him on that pass play. He just took off, and the one guy he went against was 30, 40 yards down the field. And if you're one guy in the open field with Anthony Richardson, buddy, good luck. You have a better chance of winning the lottery. I was confused on how bad Utah was up front on defense. They did not look big. They did not look physical. Florida manhandled them up front. Their offense, the one thing that I put my eggs in a basket was for Cam Rising late in the game to show up when the moment was the biggest, because that's what I've seen him do his career, especially last year. But to the life of me, I'm still sitting here right now after watching that entire game yesterday, and I'm wondering why Cam Rising threw that pass. What he saw to throw that pass. A guy who's experienced, a guy who's been through it, who's been in championship games, who knows what it feels like to go against the best, the Ohio States. To make that pass, it makes me change my mind on him somewhat. I know it's game one, but still, I mean, you got to see what you got to see in the biggest moments. He made the biggest mistake. But kudos to Anthony Richardson, man. The guy, the sky's the limit for this guy. I really do want to see him get better the intermediate to short game, especially going through his progressions. But still, man, the kid's an absolute stud, and he's the closest thing to Vince Young that I've seen for a while. I think he throws as well as Vince. I think Cam was a better thrower than him in college. They run somewhat the same, but I think he's more closer to Vince Young than to Cam Newton.
Yeah, well, David, too, let's not forget, it shouldn't even have got to that point with Cam Rising in the end zone. He threw a ball right to Ventrell Miller on that last drive that should have been picked. I mean, if Ventrell Miller was going to be sick if Florida lost that game, it shouldn't even have got to that point. But it was, I can't believe when you're down by a field goal that Cam Rising, a guy with experience, all right, ended up making that decision. But his first offseason as the guy, and he didn't play bad. Let's not act like Cam Rising. I mean, you went 23 to 33 for 220, a touchdown. You ran, you ran 7 for 91, so you were effective on the ground. And he's one of those guys that runs goofy. You're like, oh, this guy isn't fast until he's by you, or he somehow jukes you because he just runs different. That's why running backs that have success, that run goofy, tend to be harder to tackle. But guys, I do want to shift to NC State real quick. We're going to hit NC State, Cincinnati. Obviously going to preview this Florida LSU game as well. Hit some UNC App State. But I do want to jump to Cincinnati, Arkansas. KJ Jefferson yesterday in the red zone. We talked about this all offseason. That's where he's his best. You saw the jump pass, and at the end, the broken tackles, that 3rd and 9 that he was able to run for and get that pretty much iced the game. I thought Cincinnati, Luke Fickle, played about as well in the second half as they could have. In the first half, Ben Bryant just wasn't making the throws. If you go back and watch that first half, he had guys open. He just wasn't making the throws. In the second half, he was able to hit them. But Arkansas just grinds you. They grind you. They grind you. And then they put you away. I had a -5.5. Thank goodness that hit. Blaine, I think you had a -6.5 as well. That was a great cover. That's what Sam Pittman at Arkansas does. It's a nice top 25 win. I still like Arkansas right now as the 3rd best team in the SEC. They've shown me nothing to disprove that, because Cincinnati, while they did lose Desmond Ridder, a couple NFL corners, they did bring back a nice core of that team coming off a big year. So we're going to see it. Arkansas's got South Carolina week 2, who didn't, Spencer Rattler, I'm just saying, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, Didn't look great, was 12-9 going in the third quarter, but that's a story for another day. I'm not going to let South Carolina fans get in here and freak out. Cone, what did you think about Arkansas, Cincinnati? How for real do you think Arkansas is?
I came away with 3 points. One, Luke Fickell can coach.
For sure.
He is a heck of a coach. Give him time at any place. He's going to get the players. He's going to do a great job. 2, Arkansas gave up way too many big plays in the secondary, especially for a defense that is known to sort of keep things in front of them. They're going to have to get that figured out, especially as they go on to play better quarterbacks in the SEC slate. And then the third thing is, KJ Jefferson clearly can get the job done on the ground. We've known that for a while. I'm still not convinced of his ability to hit intermediate passes when the game is on the line late. What's going to happen when he faces defenses where he can't just run at will, and it's not easy to get to the 5-yard line or in that green zone where the jump pass is always an option? From the 35 out, how can you put the ball in the end zone through the air? There was one slant pass yesterday that was in the dirt about 5 yards behind the receiver. Those are the kind of passes that I want to see KJ Jefferson hit as they go on to play Texas A&M and Alabama or possibly Georgia in a conference championship.
Yeah, and Blaine, let me ask this. I mean, KJ, he was 18 for 26, went for about 230, 3 touchdowns. But Cone, something else that we've talked about a lot, and Arkansas fans know this better than anybody. KJ Jefferson got beat up last year and got more hurt as the year went on. And I know, obviously, you get more banged up as the year goes. But the shots that he was taking last year, I thought this year they were going to be a little safer with him. And I know at some point, like he said, you got to take over the game. You got to be physical, this, that, and the other. But if KJ Jefferson doesn't survive this season, Arkansas is not going to be able to do what I thought they would be able to do. And yesterday, he was still taking hits. Mm-hmm. He was still taking shots. He was still trying to run guys over. And you could see him in his legs a little bit as that game went on, struggling to get up a little bit, starting to cramp a little bit. You could tell they were sore a little bit. With that schedule, it's going to be tough for him to make it through this whole year unscathed or not have to miss a game if they're going to keep using him the way they did last year.
Yeah, not only him, and Catalan got hurt in that game too. He was on and off the field, and I mean that's another huge piece for them that has to stay healthy. There's nothing about this Arkansas team watching this game I was surprised from. It's Arkansas. KJ's going to run it. He's never been a great thrower. We wanted him to be better as a thrower. I don't really think we saw that yesterday. The cornerback play from Arkansas was atrocious. You're not going to be able to be able to play a lot of press man like they did and come out with a lot of victories against SEC teams because they were getting roasted by Cincinnati receivers. I thought Cincinnati played as well as they could with what they lost, with losing Desmond Ridder, with losing Sauce Gardner, losing another corner. I feel like Luke Fickell's doing a great job there, just bringing guys back to compete. I still think Cincinnati's a top 25 team. But Arkansas, I thought Browse did a great job on the offense. We obviously see who KJ's favorite target is. This is tight end, who's an absolute giant, who actually has great hands to be that size. But you're going to go as far as KJ can take you in that offense. And as much as they run him, his knees, his hammies were starting to give out in that game, and it's worrisome. But I do feel good about Arkansas on the defensive line. Holding their own. Bumper Pool had a great game. They were physical. That was one of the most physical games on yesterday that you could watch from the first to the fourth quarter. But Arkansas, Sam Pittman, they're having to really think about how much they want to run KJ, because if you look at their schedule, it doesn't get easier. And if you lose KJ, I mean, your backup's good. He's fast. He can run. But I know KJ's not an elite thrower, but he's not even close to the thrower that KJ is. So you're really going to have to weigh your options when it comes to KJ's legs in the next couple of weeks coming up.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and shift over. We're going to hit overrated, underrated too, and then obviously our best and worst tomorrow on the show. Make sure you check out the show. If you're just finding us now, we go live every weekday morning, 7:30 to 9 Eastern on YouTube. Crane & Company, go to Daily Wire Plus, sign up, hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube as well. But let's go ahead to NC State, guys. And look, a win's a win. All right, a win is a win. But there's a lot of people. NC State's going to make the playoff. This is the year NC State does it. They're going to beat Clemson's ass. This, and the other. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I was very surprised at, number one, how boring NC State was on offense outside of the running back, who was unbelievably physical. Devin Leary, I thought, was very okay. Thayer Thomas, we know what we're going to get from him. But when you look at NC State and their ability to not only finish drives, but make plays in the clutch, really should have lost the game. The game should have gone into overtime, And then the kicker had a chance to win it for East Carolina. Not that NC State's going to have a bad year, or I think they're super overrated. I was just very disappointed that I didn't see that killer instinct in NC State, that we thought a lot of veterans have returning, a lot of veterans, returning a lot of guys that have been through the process, that understand Dave Doran, that they have worked for this year. I was just very underwhelmed by NC State's performance. And I do want to give East Carolina's defense credit, just like I'll give Notre Dame credit. I'll give Notre Dame a lot of credit. I see somebody in the chat saying, they're never going to give Notre Dame credit. Y'all win a big game. Like win a big game, Tony E. Y'all win a big game. I'm going to give you credit. I'm not going to give you credit for being a bridesmaid every year. Like, win the big game. Yeah, you played good, but it's still not good enough. It's still not good enough. But when you look at NC State, how worried, David, are you about NC State?
I mean, I'm very, present David is very mad at past David for being so bullish on NC State. Look, I was born in Greenville, North Carolina. My parents were teaching at ECU when I was born. Now, I grew up in Statesboro, where Georgia Southern is, but I've always kept close tabs on East Carolina. I know those boys can play football. This is why my question to Colin Wilson on the Saturday special was, NC State going on the road against a scrappy team. Like, what do they have to do to look good? So anything that I'm about to say, I don't want it to take away from East Carolina, because not only did they keep this game close, but man, they were physical and physical where it mattered, physical at the goal line. Having said that, if you're NC State and you get 8 plays on 2 different drives from the 1-yard line, and you're lining up sometimes under center, sometimes in the shotgun, you're doing everything you can to score, and you can't score. No, I don't think you can go into Clemson and score when it matters. So I was very bullish on NC State possibly winning the ACC, not only because I think Devin Leary is a top 5 quarterback in the country, and I really do think he throws the prettiest ball in the country. I was telling my father-in-law Richard yesterday, he's not the best quarterback, but he throws the prettiest ball. But it was more than that. It was what they brought back on defense, the secondary, the linebacker play. To me, great. You're 1-0. You went in and got to win against a physical, scrappy team, a tough place to play. But NC State has to win that game by more than that.
No, I agree. And look, Colton Ehlers, it's a good story, but so is Hansel and Gretel. NC State had a much better team. You can't score 8 plays going into the one, Blaine. I mean, against East Carolina.
And you want to beat Clemson?
Yeah. Let me tell you a story about something that never happened.
A guy, coming from a guy who had a -6.5, it was a tragedy, after in that game. But I do like the way NC State's defense played. They were physical up front. The secondary was flying around, and then when NC State players got to you, they felt you. And as a guy watching football, that's what I like to watch. But I'm extremely concerned up front for NC State on the offensive line. If you want to be the guys, because you're going to go against the guys who wear orange, who probably have one of the best defensive line we've seen for a long time. And to get you over that hump, you're going to have to be able to push those guys back and be able to run the ball, which, they did an okay job late in that game running the ball, but against East Carolina team that was good, but had no business being down 1. And realistically, if a guy knows how to hold a snap and can get the laces out, that game should have went to overtime. And then we just saw how it went from there. Devin Leary does throw one of the prettiest balls in the nation. I mean, just seeing it come out of his hand is just like poetry. But I thought he completely underperformed in this game. He threw a couple of balls that I'm still scratching my head about, especially late in that game, that late pick. So this is not a team that I think can win the ACC. And, I mean, you go back and watch and think about the other teams, watch the Pitt game. Pitt's for real on defense. Mm-hmm. Pitt is for real on defense. That D-line's
for real,
That D-line's for real. They got some corners and safeties that are extremely good, are zeroed in their identity and what they wanted to do. And I enjoyed – that was one of my favorite games to watch, was the West Virginia Pitt game.
Yeah.
But Devin Leary has to do more. Up front, they have to get a lot better if you're going to win the ACC, because it's going through Clemson right now. I know Clemson plays Georgia Tech Monday, and we'll know more once we see them on the field. Mm-hmm. But, just disappointed, underwhelmed, expected more from the offense. I mean, it's a win. A win's a win, but, you're not going to get too much hype or too much love for me after watching that performance.
Yeah, I got a question. James Stalling in a donation, $5, says, "What's up, guys? Hope everything is well. Okay. I know it wasn't a marquee game, but is there a quarterback controversy at Auburn?"
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I mean, to me, it's going to be tough not to play Robbie Ashford. And the sad part is TJ Finley came in, first 4 drives, Auburn looked clean as you possibly could, making the right decisions. Now, the offensive line, again, and I'm screaming it, and I'll continue to scream it, they're just not good. It is what it is. The personnel's not good up front on the offensive line. I was a little worried about the defense too, to be honest with you, looking at the depth on defense. But looking at the quarterback position, Robbie Ashford goes 4 for 7, did hit a big play, made some good throws. He's still not nearly as clean as a thrower. Reminds me a little bit of Hornsby from Arkansas, the backup lane that you talked about. TJ Finley goes 9 for 14, 112 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. I thought you saw old school Brian Harsin offensively from a formation and schematic standpoint. It's funny, I tweeted out this is a young Harsin offense. And everybody's like, hey, it's Mercer, it's Mercer. I'm not talking about the execution. I'm talking about the scheme, the play call, the style. He's obviously coaching with nothing to lose. He knows he has to have a good year or he's fired. That's why he's running jet sweep options with the backup quarterback. You saw Auburn run a ton of alternative plays. You saw them really attack the perimeter in the run game like everybody thought they would with the stretch, with outside zone. I thought it was I'd give Auburn a B-, C+ in that game. I didn't see anything that said, you know what? This team can really, really do some things that will surprise some people. Now, Auburn has a way of doing that, but TJ Finley, you can't turn the ball over, especially against Mercer. Now, if we were going against him in a courtroom, I would understand if you had a couple turnovers, but it's not a courtroom. It was in Jordan-Hare, and it's a football game. So Tank's Tank. Jarquez is nice. Auburn's got some nice pieces outside. We know what Shanker is. The offensive line's not very good, but there is a quarterback controversy at Auburn. And San Jose State just beat Portland State by 4. This isn't your typical San Jose State team that gave Brian Harsin trouble when he was at Boise. But, yeah, I think there is a quarterback problem. And to be honest with you, right now after watching it, and I know it's one game and a small sample size, I think Robbie Ashford gives you the best chance to win just because he can extend the play with his legs. And when you play teams like Georgia and Bama and these teams that have freak athletes, you're not winning, but most likely. But you have to have a guy that can do things outside of sit in the pocket and throw interceptions. And that's all. And that's all TJ Finley showed us game 1. Now, he didn't throw an interception in a lot of passes before that. I forget the exact number. But you cannot make those mistakes. I mean, one pick he threw to the middle of the field, he didn't even see the backside safety. They were in quarters. They were in quarters the whole night. You got to know where the backside safety is. And against Georgia or Bama or Florida or Tennessee or Arkansas, that could be the turnover that guts you, or that could be the turnover that gets picked and they go 70 and you lose the game. So, yeah, there's a quarterback controversy in Auburn, and they better fix it before Penn State comes to town. I can promise you that.
Well, the thing about one thing is all picks aren't created equally.
That's true.
And his interceptions, TJ interceptions, were bad. And when I look at this Auburn team, the more I watch games Saturday, other SEC teams play, I felt better about this Auburn team. I had them going 2-6 in the SEC. But I feel like they'll be able to compete with a lot of teams in the SEC. Their defense is good. I mean, Tank and Jarquez. I love watching Tank Bigsby run the football, man. It's just that kid could run on water. He made a couple kids look so bad. It's just I felt bad for their families who were watching the game. But still, what it comes down to in the SEC is like you're going to have so many close games. And who's the player that wins you those close games? It's your quarterback. All right, your quarterback will have to take you home and lead you in late games to bring home the W. And I don't think Auburn has that quarterback in TJ Finley. I don't think Robbie Ashford, the guy either. Maybe Robbie and maybe a year just down the road when he gets more experience. But, I still have to lean to other teams that have quarterbacks. I think they have just as good as a roster as Florida. They have just as good as a roster as Tennessee. They have just as good as a roster as Arkansas. But what's missing in those on those teams is Auburn doesn't have a quarterback realistically that you trust or you're comfortable with down the stretch to put like, hey, man, go win us a game. I have zero confidence on going up to TJ Finley says, hey, man, we need this drive. You go win us that game. And that'll be a difference with a lot of wins in Auburn's season this year, whether they get to 8 or 9 wins. So it's, to me, it's a controversy that great. I mean, but the guys that are in the controversy really don't make it a controversy because it's a Spider-Man gif and they're just pointing at each other.
Yeah, David, I think you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't catch as much of the Auburn game with all the other ones that were on, but the question that I was going to ask you guys today, last year you talked about the wide receiver room at Auburn so much. How do you feel after this opening game with that group?
Well, I thought the Johnson kid again, not Malcolm Johnson, looked all right. Malcolm, that there was a couple plays he got a jet sweep that was all right. Shed Jackson had 47 yards. Shanker did have the touchdown. I like seeing Damari Alston come in at running back a little bit and work a little bit out of the backfield. But it's going to be a lot of Johnson and Jackson. I really wanted to see Chick Dawson get some more targets. He had 2 targets, 1 catch for 2 yards. He's a guy that I think has a chance to be special down the road as he keeps developing. But look, I mean, they've got some guys that are somewhat talented, but do they have a game breaker? Do they have a guy that can turn that 50-50 ball into a 70-30 ball? We've still got to see it. I mean, there wasn't a huge moment last night. There wasn't a ton of game pressure last night on somebody to go up and get one or somebody to go make a play against an NFL corner or an NFL safety. We're going to see as we go on who are the guys that rise to the occasion the brighter the lights get. And Auburn has got to have that guy because, especially if it's TJ Finley, because TJ Finley, every quarterback needs help, right? Every quarterback wants as talented a team across the board as they possibly can have. Some need it more than others. TJ Finley has to have guys around him that can hit explosive plays because he is not a guy that's going to come in there and wow you with keeping a play alive and hitting a home run or taking off for 40 or doing something like that. Robbie Ashford, on the other hand, can take off, can make plays. But I think Auburn is still a question mark right now. It's like I said before the season. You're not going to know really until Penn State. You may have a little bit of an idea or an inkling here, an inkling there, but you're not going to know until Penn State comes to town. Not that Penn State is a top 10 team, but they're good enough where you can find out what you're really about. But speaking of Auburn, former Auburn head coach Gene Chizik, who's now the defensive coordinator at North Carolina, got absolutely shredded like cheddar cheese yesterday.
Yeah.
And listen, it's one thing if you're having a bad day, right? It's like that one song, you had a bad day, taking one down, whatever. Yesterday was some of the worst coaching I have seen in a long time with North Carolina for a couple reasons. North Carolina has athletes, right? North Carolina has guys that can run. Nobody would collision a receiver yesterday for North Carolina. 30? I think it was the nickel or the safety, or they might have mixed for both. Just let guys run free. I mean, they're playing press and letting guys run free. Nobody was collisioning any receiver. Chase Bryce was looking at wondering how these guys are so wide open. App State lost all their receivers last year coming into this year. You return 2 running backs and a good O-line, and Chase Bryce is functional. They torched North Carolina, but North Carolina had a chance to put the game away 10 different times.
Yeah.
You're up 14 points going in. You gave up 40 points in the fourth quarter. 40 points in a quarter. That hasn't happened since 2000 or before Frodo threw the ring in the volcano. And then on an onside kick, what do you coach to do? We get the onside kick. You're up 1 point. You're up 1. You're lucky to be up 1 point because Chase Bryce overthrew the guy on the slip off the play action of the 2-point conversion when they brought him in the jet sweep with the zone going the other way. So you were lucky to be at that point. But you get that ball and you fall down. Why? Because you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out that you're up 1 point. So if you score a touchdown with an extra point, that's 8 points. That's one score. So this guy gets the onside kick, runs the ball back for dives in the end zone with 28 seconds. Everybody's celebrating, doing whatever they're going to put on TikTok later. And you're up 8 points. What does App State do? What they did the whole game, really, outside of the second quarter and a little bit of the third, drove it right down your throat through the air, and you should have lost it. North Carolina's very fortunate. Drake May is a dog. I see why Alabama wanted him. He was committed to Alabama, I believe, at one point, and he made some throws yesterday, especially shuffling to his left. They're not going to have a problem scoring points, but that was one of the worst defensive performances, one of the worst coaching performances from a little things, from the minute and the macro, was one of the worst coaching performances. They're lucky to escape with a win, and if you're App State, I mean, you had more chances to take them down than just about anybody.
Yeah, and Appalachian State continues to prove season after season that they are a serious contender. It doesn't matter if they're playing Power 5 schools or not. Now, look, I have my own personal experience with them, with being on that Michigan team that they beat, but they almost beat Miami in the opener last year, Jake. You called that one. I mean, they're a 2-point conversion. I mean, 1 inch away here on a kid turning the wrong way from beating North Carolina. I expected more from 2 championship winning coaches. You got Mac Brown and Gene Chizik now on the defensive side of the ball. I thought that they would be able to, even if you go play Appalachian State close in Boone, but it's 28-27, that's a lot different than giving up 40 points in a quarter. I can't even remember the last time I've heard of something like that. I thought if North Carolina were to take a step backwards this year, it's because you lost Sam Howell to the NFL. And then all of a sudden this Drake May kid comes in and says, no, quarterback's not the problem. We've got that locked down. So I don't know where North Carolina goes from here. Look, being 1-0 is better than being 0-1. But they're going to have to do something, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Blaine.
Yeah, and Blaine, guess where App State goes next week?
Cal Field, right?
Ooh, they're going to play A&M, and Haynes King, all right, made some good plays, but still skeptical. Missed a lot of open receivers. And A&M fans, y'all can feel this through the pick. I was shocked we didn't see a little bit of Max Johnson.
Me too. I mean, I know he threw for 3 bills plus. But still, the mistakes he made, I'll go back to what I said earlier. All picks aren't created equally. Especially the first half of that game before he got delayed, and he just looked out of sync, out of rhythm. It just didn't feel right. And, then I really thought about A&M. You go through A&M through the years. I mean, the last thing they really have been was explosive. Haven't really hit a lot of big plays. I mean, they hit a lot of big plays, and I know it was against Sam Houston State.
Sam Houston State should have got out of man.
Yeah,
I don't know why they
which
stayed
isn't
in
the
man.
best team out here. But the more I watched them, the more I start to like Max Johnson. You got to trust Jimbo to a certain extent, and Jimbo says he says something you have to play like aggressive but smart, basically, which is right. But I still think just what I saw from Max at LSU just looks cleaner. Max probably looks more comfortable in the pocket. I don't know if it's a new system type of thing, right? If Max is not completely, fully comfortable with the new system. But, I mean, with this App State team coming in A&M, I know they might have given up 1,000 points to Notre Dame, but they play hard on defense. And, it wasn't a great showing for a lot of former Auburn defensive coordinators in Oklahoma State at Derek Mason and Gene Chizik at North Carolina. I still think, A&M will win that game, but I'm surprised we didn't see Max Johnson in that first game just to get out there and let him spin it a little bit and see what it looks like. But I even with Haynes King throwing for 300 plus, I'm not impressed. I don't think he felt 100% comfortable out there. And then the mistakes that he made were mistakes you usually don't see. Not seeing safeties, throwing a ghost. I don't think A&M's the number 6 team in the country. To be honest, I don't. I think that you can move them back a little bit. I don't think their offense will be good enough. But I go back to, I'm so surprised we didn't see Max Johnson out there, David. I know you were.
Me too. And Jake and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday, and not necessarily the first snap of the second half. Not necessarily after that, was it the first or the second interception that Haynes King threw? Not necessarily then, because you're sending a certain message there that I don't know if you want to send to a quarterback you've just named the starter. But at least a quarter of work when you're up that much against Sam Houston, I thought maybe we would see Max Johnson in there. Again, Jimbo Fisher's forgotten more football than I'll know. You have to trust him at the quarterback position at some point. And we don't even need to talk about Haynes King's athleticism. The guy is just unbelievable. He made a couple throws yesterday. I had to take a double take. I said Brett Favre wouldn't try and squeeze it in that window, and a few of them were completed. And when you see that, look, Texas A&M fans have a lot to get excited for, but it's the decision making. There's the confidence to squeeze those balls into those tight windows, but then there's also, okay, well, what's Alabama doing with that? Are they taking that back for 6? Again, this is what I was trying to tell some Texas A&M fans yesterday is it's not about beating Sam Houston. Y'all want to be Alabama, right? And this is the same thing with like NC State. It's great to beat, ECU by 1, but you're trying to beat Clemson. You're trying to build what they've built, right? So let's see how this plays out. I'm surprised Max Johnson didn't get at least a quarter or a half quarter of work. But at the end of the day, maybe Haynes King can take that next step in terms of his decision making, because the physical tools are certainly there.
Yeah, and the physical problem's never been the problem with Haynes King. They were kind of stuck in the mud a little bit, and that was the longest lightning delay. I was like, is Zeus literally throwing lightning bolts on Kyle Field? That was the longest delay ever. Getting some questions about Texas. Look, I thought Quinn looked all right. 2 touchdowns and an interception. It's La Monroe. We're not going to know. I'm just think La Monroe was lucky to have enough helmets for the guys that went down there to play. I am going to say this, and I think Sark is the right guy at Texas. I think Texas is going to be fine once they get that offensive line shored up. it is going to be hard for me not to put everything I own on whatever the spread opens at for Bama.
It was 17 last time I saw it.
It was 17? Okay. Well, I may put the collateral of my house on Alabama minus 17. And that's not me trying to disrespect or make fun of Texas. That's how good Alabama is. So even if you're a Texas fan, and you didn't watch Alabama, Utah State, I would go watch it and get your ice pack ready because you're going to be sore after you watch it. I may have to watch that game in bubble wrap like the people who worship Zoltan off Dude, Where's My Car? That's how physical Alabama is, and the depth is nuts, and it's on both sides of the ball. I just don't see a world in where Texas up front, Will Anderson and Dallas Turner off the edge. I haven't seen an edge that dangerous since, Tom Cruise was in The Edge of Tomorrow with Emily Blunt, just trying to wake up and win the war every day.
Yeah, fair enough. That one. It'll be. It should. Let's see what Sark's able to do on offense. But I tend to agree with you here on this one.
Yeah, look, that's probably gonna be a sharp. I will say I'm 3-0 on dog bets, 1-0 on sharps. Pretty excited about it. We are gonna give our pick for LSU 2 here at the end with a little bit of a preview. I do want to hit some periphery stuff, though, Cone. This is going really good. It's our first one. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Arizona, Jed Fish goes out to San Diego State. Yep. I took the Delora kid, him transferring in. It's a new day in Arizona. Kevin Sumlin, deconstructed that program like those chefs do when they like deconstruct the meal in like the smallest thing possible, which I thought was the exact opposite of what a chef should do. But, again, that's why this isn't a chef show. Very, very excited for them. It's good for football for Arizona to be good. And if I'm the Big Ten, I'm looking at Arizona right now and looking at their trajectory up. And we talk about Washington and we talk about Oregon. And we talk about some of these other teams. Arizona's looking pretty interesting. The SEC goes undefeated yesterday. They're undefeated, on the season. Vanderbilt beat Elon. They didn't cover like I wish they did. But do you think this is maybe one of the deepest years, Cone? I know it's early, but the SEC, pretty much walked the dog yesterday. I know there were, some cupcake games, but in the big games, we'll see with LSU tonight. How deep do you think this SEC is this year?
Oh, the SEC. It's as deep as it can be. I'm looking at Ole Miss, the two Mississippi schools. I want to see. Let's see what LSU can they bounce back tonight against an athletic Florida State team, a team that I think that they should be. Those are the kind of teams I'm looking at. Also, Auburn, Penn State, I think will be a great telling of what we get. Yep. Let's see what South Carolina is really able to do once they play some competition. Sort of that middle of the pack. Who's going to rise up? I called Texas A&M as my third team. Jake, you called Alabama and Arkansas, and I think Blaine called Tennessee. I'm starting to maybe jump on that Tennessee train as that third best SEC team. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. And then you guys called Arizona. Look, I'm a big Brady Hoke fan. I have a personal relationship with Brady Hoke. I have a lot of respect for the guy. What he's been able to do at San Diego State, I think, is phenomenal. But Arizona to be able to go win that football game, I think, is pretty remarkable. And there's a lot of other storylines we're going to get to this week. Of course, we're going to talk Houston, UTSA. Of course, we're going to talk the Michigan quarterback battle. Iowa beat South Dakota State 7-3 with two safeties. Miami putting up 70 on Bethune-Cookman. So
Nebraska.
Nebraska. We had Will Compton over there playing the trumpet in the stands. So we're going to break all this down on a week of shows.
So make sure you like and subscribe. Nebraska with an extra S in the middle after the AS after that performance. It's just the time is waning for Scott Frost there. It wasn't even North Dakota State. It was just North Dakota. It's just cold as hell, where they were. That's the only thing they have going. But guys, LSU, Florida State tonight. Let's go around the room. Let's get predictions. Drop your bet. We'll tweet it out. I'll go ahead and start. I think Jaden Daniels is the guy for LSU. I'm not saying I don't think Nussmeier will play, but I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I look at Florida State, and while I do think LSU may take a little bit to get started offensively, when you have guys like Butte, when you have guys like Besh, the offensive line's a big question mark, but Jaden Daniels' legs kind of limits a little bit over pursuing him on the edge. He can do things to keep the play alive. On that 3rd and 7, you don't have to make the perfect time pass. He can take off and get it, similar to what we saw a little bit from KJ Jefferson, some of these other athletic quarterbacks as well. I know Florida State is athletic on the defensive line. I just don't believe in Jordan Travis. Not that he can't run. Hell yeah, he can run. But there's a sport for that. It's called track. This is football, and you play quarterback. So if you're one-dimensional, LSU can run too on defense. I promise you, I know about 6 things in this life. One of them is that LSU can run. I promise that will always be the truth. So when I look at this game, I like LSU minus 2.5. It's going on, I think, at minus 145 on DraftKings. Use that promo code Booster, BOOSTER. If you're a new customer, you get $200 off a $5 bet. So you sign up, use the code, bet $5, you get $200 free to bet. So take that $200, put it on LSU minus 2.5, because I think they're going to win by at least a field goal, because I don't believe in Mike Norvell in this offense, just like I don't believe in the Snuffleupagus. I don't believe in Peter Pan, even though he may be more true than the Snuffleupagus. I just don't
Peter Pan's real.
Believe, and Peter Pan's also the villain. Yeah. But I don't believe that Florida State can throw the ball well enough. And Blaine, real quick, there's a lot of people in the chat asking.
Yeah, I wanted to address this.
You want to address this about Oregon?
I think his name was Darth Janus or something like that. Yeah, I was wrong. I was 100%. Look, and I tell you what, Georgia, look, forever, for the rest of college football season, I will be betting on y'all to cover on whoever you're playing. Whether that's Bama in the SEC championship, the playoffs, and national championship. Y'all look like one of the best teams. There's two teams right now in college football. It's Bama and Georgia. I apologize to all Georgia fans out there. You lost. You got 15 people drafted. Sorry if I thought you fell off a little bit. It's kind of hard not to when you're the entire draft was the Georgia football team. Okay, but props to Kirby. I mean, props to Stetson. I mean, y'all guys are absolute ballers. I knew it'd be good. You know, I so much thought Oregon would win. I just didn't think it'd just be you'd win by 50. You know, I don't think a lot of people did, but that's fine. Like I'm a grown ass man. I'll come over here and tell you when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. I knew I was wrong after the first drive. Okay, and so at that point, I really didn't have to watch I watched the rest of the game, but I knew what was going to happen. In my head, I was waiting to come on this show and say, what am I going to say to Georgia fans? And I'm saying that I was wrong. But hey, man, y'all keep kicking ass, and I'll be betting on y'all for the rest of the year. So this LSU Florida game, Jake, you said you got LSU minus 2.5, correct?
Yeah, I got LSU minus 2.5. So like I said, sneak in your parents' room when they're not there.
Ooh,
you take the money out of the piggy bank. You go to DraftKings. You use that promo code, and then you put that money back with $5 interest, and go down and get your popsicles.
You taking 1 bet or 2 bets today, Jake?
So you want to take 1 or 2?
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I like the LSU minus 2.5, but I found a little alternate spread I liked. That was 55.
Oh, wow. Are you being so alternate right now?
It was a total points, 55.5 and under. I think it's coming off at minus 180. I don't think these teams are going to be able to run the ball that well. I think both these D lines are pretty good. I think LSU might have a little more success than Florida State, but I do like the under at 55.5 going off at minus 180. But I do think LSU wins this game. Brian Kelly goes 1-0 as the head coach of LSU. David Cohn, tell me what you think.
I think this could be the greatest collection of athletes on the field at the same time this season until Georgia and Alabama play. You know,
whoa, what? No, Ohio State, Michigan? Whoa.
I mean, look, you said a few things in life to be true, and you were talking about LSU can run. Well, Florida State's going to have athletes on the field. We know that, and that hasn't necessarily been the problem. Now, I took LSU minus 2.5 at UCLA in the opener last year. That came back to bite me. So I don't know if I'm going to go with the points today, but I don't think we can underestimate just how much of the problem with LSU was Coach Orgeron. With the stories that we heard from Moscona and T-Bob and some of those guys, like clearly that was the problem. Brian Kelly has undoubtedly brought in discipline to that program, and a little bit of discipline early goes a long way. And Florida State hasn't had a winning season since what, Jake? 2016?
2016.
Look, so I'm going to take LSU money line in the first half and LSU money line for the game at minus 150 and minus 175 respectfully.
I love it.
Yeah, we may place that second bet. We may tweet out that second bet. I'm gonna really have to dive in, but I do like LSU minus 2.5. Got a question about Bijan Robinson. I thought he was fine. He just had to be healthy through that game. You just had to get past La Monroe, and now you got to get healthy and get past Bama. Because I'm just gonna tell you what Bijan Robinson's nice. He's super nice, but Batman against Superman in reality, you lose. You can't just be rich and nuts. I mean, they have superpowers. Yeah, like that. Bijan is great. He's going to be a great NFL player. He doesn't have the offensive line. Watch what Jaheim Otis does to these poor human beings up front.
Where did they
on
get
Texas
him from,
offensive
man?
line? Yeah, I'm going to tell you where. You know where they got him. It's 3 places. There's 3 places.
What cave?
Either Hogwarts. He was just running around and found him. 2, Narnia, Mr. Tumnus, take me to the Ice Queen. No, take me to Jaheim Otis. I want to win a national championship. Or number 3, I'll go back to what I said earlier, Mordor. You get out of the Shire, go buy some fireworks from Gandalf, get in the carriage, go about a day and a half's ride, and Jaheim Otis is just waiting for you.
So I would say Mordor feels right. He's like the guy you send to run through the gate just to with like a spike helmet on. So for sure. Mordor feels right.
No, that is true. But a great week 1, guys. Everybody appreciate y'all in the chat joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff as well. I mean, we're going to be breaking this down like Patrick Swayze in a dance-off the whole year. We got a great live show again tomorrow morning. It's 7:30 to 9 Eastern. That's 6:30 to 8 Central. And I think that's 2 p.m. to 4 or 3:30 p.m. Beijing time. So if you're in Beijing, make sure you get to check it out. But, guys, parting thoughts.
Man. My parting thought is, I thought I go back to the West Virginia Pitt game. You have 2 transfer quarterbacks. I thought both of them played well. I thought JT Daniels played pretty well. I was impressed with all the Cali quarterbacks, JT Daniels, Slovis, Jackson Dart. The kids from Cali know how to sling it. So after my parting thoughts is no one's beating Alabama or Georgia. The only ones who can beat them are each other. So good luck, Texas.
Yeah, Cone, parting thoughts off week 1.
I had so much fun yesterday. The whole household, man. You get the buffalo chicken dip going, the mini hot dogs. We have to get everything together next time. The whole team, the Power Rangers together, for that. But
Mega Ranger.
Ball's around the corner. Guys, it's that time.
Oh, it is. Mine, like you, Blaine, I mean, it looks like Alabama and Georgia, now Ohio State. Again, I think that they have the ability. It's going to be interesting to see Michigan grow throughout the year, but it seems like we are heading for probably, depending on how it works out, another Georgia-Alabama national championship game if they finish seeded where they don't play each other in the first round of the playoff. We're going to be talking about the expanded playoffs to 12 tomorrow. Probably going to be leading the show off with it. Just going to tell you kind of what I think. Some of you already know, but there's some minutia in there that I think we really got to fill out and find out. Greg Sankey coming out saying they don't think they're going to be ready by 2026. Well, you send John Taffer from Bar Rescue in there and they'll be ready. I promise. He'll just start screaming at everybody. That typically works. But we appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed your football watching. Enjoy LSU, Florida State tonight, then Clemson's de-pantsing of Georgia Tech on Monday, most likely. Make sure you subscribe, like I said, and like the chances of NC State making the playoff after that performance. And Louisville. We didn't talk about Louisville. They got absolutely ran out of the gym by Syracuse. One of the most disappointing
Corso called that one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that wasn't even close.
Satterfield.
Yeah, Dino Babers needed it too because he's on the hot seat. Satterfield, you can probably say, is now getting close to the hot seat. Somebody asked about Mac Brown. I don't think so. I mean, he's 103 years old. The seat's already hot. But we appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe. Check us out tomorrow live, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. It's Crane & Company, sports without the woke.